We're going to do the top 5 fights with the most biased commentary. Mainly, I'm going to be looking at recent years, because, well, I'm a shameless casual. What do you want from me? So it seems Joe and DC spend more time at the barbers than they do researching fighters, and apparently instead rely on preconceived narratives. Now, I'm not going to include John Anik's strong bias against MMA fans, as it's just too toxic and it'll bring down this whole classy affair. Number 5. John Jones versus Dominic Reyes. Now this one hurts not just because of the bias, but extra because of the injustice. Probably the worst robbery in the history of the UFC, and a robbery that completely broke Reyes and sent him into a spiral of terrible losses and pretty much ruined him. It wasn't the worst display of bias, but there were definitely a fair few moments of giving Jones a complete birthday boy rim job every time he even slightly connected with anything. And then completely ignoring the shots coming back from Reyes, unless it was brutal and then they'd just make a noise. 4. Khabib and Conor. The classic showcase for the old gas him out by getting mauled strategy. Masterfully executed by Conor. Very smart. This one's only 4 because it was more ridiculous than biased, but I wanted to include it. According to Dom, Conor knows he can land that left whenever he wants. And in a bold move, Conor decided to not land it the entire fight, choosing to instead get choked out worse than D on that yacht. And the way that Dom narrates Conor laying on the floor, tactically gassing Khabib, was beautiful. I hadn't actually seen that kind of offense before. Brilliant. Legendary work from Cruz. 3. Costa versus Rockhold. Now we're warming up. It was as clear as a Michael Chandler paternity test that DC really wanted Luke to win. At one point, Costa took Luke down and DC said, "This is exactly what Luke wanted, and this is not good for Costa." After the low blow, him and Joe were actually shouting at Luke, "Take all the time, take all the time," which is very odd behaviour from unbiased commentators. Mind-blowing. And in at 2, Holloway versus Volkanovski 2. At one point in the fight, Bisping actually said, "Go Max!" The whole commentary team was blatantly cheering for Max. They'd cream their pants every time Max would land anything, and then a beat later, completely ignore a brutal combo from Volk. It was absolutely mental and undeniable, and one of the worst examples of bias that I can think of, and I think most of you are going to agree, is Izzy versus Jan. It was disgusting. Now, I did go into that fight wanting Jan to win, so it did make it all stand out more to me, but the bias was crazy. It had me questioning my sanity. Before the fight had even started, they had clearly decided that Izzy was going to put on a masterclass, and they weren't going to change their mind no matter what they saw. It's like they had literal blinders on. I've never felt more like I was watching a different fight to the commentators. I was, though, incredibly impressed with how articulate Rogan managed to be commentating while simultaneously nursing Izzy's fat cock in his mouth. Any defensive reaction from Jan was labelled as biting on the feints, and boy, those feints were eating him up. It was death by 1,000 feints. So much damage built up from all those feints. They were money in the bank. The whole time patting Izzy on the back for doing a good job, all while he's getting fucked worse than his dog. Joe was literally going on about how much Izzy was outstriking Jan, and in the next beat, the numbers come up on the screen showing the exact opposite. It was crazy. Thank God the right man won. Izzy happened to take the loss really well, which seemed to even more highlight the absurdity of the commentary team. Anyway, there you go. Now take a leaf out of Charlie Olive's book and hit that sub. Here's a playlist of recent bangers. I'll see you next time.